Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Camper Report. I'm your host, Benjamin Camperman, and we have Squabo Says today. Noah Bolter. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, I'm impressed, man. You impress me every moment that we speak, like even more.
Thank you. Noah Bolter, everyone. Links in the bios. You can find him. I put all of his links in the description. So if you want to find him anywhere, obviously his Twitter handle's right there. My Twitter handle is in the bio as well. So yeah. How are you doing today? First time on the show. And I'm excited to have you on. Seahawks fan. This is like one of the first times I've had a Seahawks fan. I've had Rams fans. I've had different guys like that. But you're like one of my first Seattle fans. So how are you doing today? Excited to talk football with you, Noah.
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I don't know if you know, but I'm a student at Washington State University, and
Okay.
at Wazoo, right now our football team just upset the 19th ranked team in the nation, Wisconsin, in their hometown.
Really?
So it's a beautiful day of upsets in college football. The NFL starts tomorrow. I am splendid, my friend. How are you doing?
Good. Excited to talk football. I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan because I started liking them when Jim Harbaugh went to them because I was a huge fan of his. So I'm good. Yeah. So let's get right into it. Let's talk a little bit about your Seahawks. And by the way, backstage, you were asking me what can you call me? You can just call me Ben or Benjamin, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Perfect.
But so let's talk some Seahawks and Broncos Sunday night football. And we're going to get into the Rams because that's the title of the show, but we'll get into that later on. The Seahawks play the Rams Monday night football. Should be a lot of fun. Is it in Seattle? It's passing
Yeah.
my mind right now. Okay,
Yeah.
it is. So in Seattle, Russell Wilson comes back. What are some matchups? Obviously, this team, when I look at the Seahawks on the surface, I don't see a lot of matchup. I mean, you look at their offensive line, it's a little bit rebooted. There's two rookies there. You look at their secondary, not looking great for the Seahawks. So, what is maybe a matchup that we can not look forward to, but that the Seahawks have advantage over the Broncos? What is one advantage that they have over the Broncos?
Yeah, there are a couple things that I look at. First of all, how do we not talk about the matchup between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks defense and just being against his former team? You look at Pete Carroll and the chess match that he's going to have with Russell Wilson. We know him really well. He knows us really well. And because we know him really well, we know what some of his weaknesses are. First of all, he doesn't like to attack the middle of the field. He doesn't like the seams
Ooh.
very much. So if we start to bracket those receivers towards those areas, he's more likely to either hold the ball a little bit too long, which is another one of his issues, or to throw an interception, which he doesn't do too often. But if he's going to do it, it'll probably be towards the middle of the field. Additionally, their offensive line, PFF doesn't rate a single one of their offensive linemen at a
Yeah.
70 or above in terms of run blocking. And so their run blocking is going to be a weakness. Our rush defense is a strength. So if you combine those two things, we need to make Russell Wilson throw the ball. We also need to only rush four guys at a time because Russell
Yeah.
Wilson, far too often, he holds the ball too long, and that leads to those sacks. So when we look at some of his offensive linemen, while yes, they have better pass block grades than rush block grades, they're not going to be able to protect them forever. And Russell Wilson does hold the ball too long at times. So if we just rush four, we figure out the coverage on the back end, which has been a weakness of ours. If we can do that, we can get to Russ.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you make a good point with the don't let the rush four. We saw like the 49ers, I think a few years ago, were a big rushing team. Like they used to blitz a lot. Now they don't anymore. But I remember against the Seahawks, it'd always be like we'd blitz and Russell Wilson would end up tearing us up. I think
Yep.
you have to limit them to running the ball. They can't run the ball a lot, and they're a very mid offensive line, which could be good. I mean, your guys' defensive line isn't bad. I'm looking at it right now. Let me pull it up. Let's see here. Your guys' defensive line. I had it written down.
You talk about the Al Woods of the world, the Darrell
Yeah.
Taylors, who I think he's going to be a standout. We're switching defenses from that 4-3 to the 3-4. So we're going to get our linebackers involved. Uchenna and Wilson, he's going to be a pass rusher for us. You talk about Jamal Adams.
Shelby Harris from
Yep.
Denver. That should be big as well. So your guys' pass rush isn't that bad. The thing that I worry about is this is where a big dilemma comes in is if you guys don't get home with those 4 guys, then what happens in that second level? Because your guys' secondary, Tariq Woolen, rookie, Kobe Bryant, rookie, Quandre Diggs is a safety, but there's a lot of Sidney Jones really is the only one that kind of has been on this team for a little while or has some experience. So that's where I'm a little bit worried there.
Yeah, and when you look at our secondary, they really have to play to each other's strengths. And one thing that I'm hoping this year, because we're going with the more linebacker look, we need to play Jamal Adams in the box far more often, especially with the middle finger that he suffered early on in training camp. The injury that he had to his middle finger, didn't he break his middle finger?
Yeah.
So the fact that he's got the mallet that he's going around there with, he sucked at catching the ball anyway, so maybe that'll help him somehow. But like
Right.
Quandre Diggs plays over the top. He's our one deep. He's our in cover 3. He's the one that plays up top. Jamal Adams in the box, right? So those safeties have to play together. Tariq Woolen, he's a very physical guy. He's going to make some mistakes, but he's learning lessons throughout the preseason about finishing the play, about playing through the whistle and all that stuff. So those are really good things. Tariq Woolen has some upside. Trey Brown, if we can get him healthy, he had some really good plays last year, but he just didn't see the field as much as we wanted him to. So if he's healthy, I say Trey Brown and Tariq Woolen are our starters. We brought in Artie Burns as well, who there's a viral video of him getting cooked a couple years ago against Antonio Brown in a one-on-one drill. But he's a guy that has made better plays. And then I'm blinking. There's one Mike Tyson has made Michael Jackson. We've had both of those guys. Michael Jackson, I think that's his name. I always get confused because we have so many guys that at cornerback. And yeah, if you just want to fact check or verify, I think it's Michael Jackson. We just have so many guys that we bring in: Kobe Bryant, Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson a couple years ago, that just have names of other famous people, and he has been making plays. He's been playing through the whistle. He has earned himself a spot on the field.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, I think for you guys, running the ball is going to be super key. And obviously, I do like the Charles Cross pick. Your offensive line has been apparently doing good in preseason, so I do like that pick a lot. And there's a lot of bright spots. I think if you guys can run the ball effectively against this team, I mean, they do have a very good defensive line. And they did get better with the run game this last year. So if you can somehow, because when the game rests on Geno Smith, then I think it's all over. So you have to find a way to medicate that. And again, if Pete Carroll can somehow find a way to beat Russell Wilson, and he's going to be looked at as a genius. It's going to be crazy. And I think that's another advantage is they know Russell Wilson so well. And that I was talking to a Broncos fan today where I got my hat from, got a new hat today, but he was talking about, he seems to think it's not going to be that much of a problem. I disagree with him. I think they know a lot of what Russell Wilson will do, and the Broncos are going to have to be creative here with their game planning.
I agree. A lot of people are predicting this game is going to be some huge blowout. I could see it being a slight blowout. It's not going to be crazy. Russell Wilson has no time with this new offense to get involved. Their best player is their center across the offensive line, center or left tackle. And their center and Russell Wilson haven't had a lot of time to build that connection. He's been working with the receivers all summer, but not as much the offensive line in the action of it, because that's where the physicality comes in. Not a lot of time in preseason. So the fact that Russell Wilson hasn't had a lot of time to build connection, that's going to benefit Seattle. Additionally, the fact that this is in Seattle, we got the home crowd going. It's going to be electric. So I think there are some factors going towards Seattle. I have a bet that Seattle's not going to lose by more than 18 points. Just a little
pretty good, actually.
Bet. I hope I
kind of agree with you there.
And it was against CG Ruthless Sports. It was last week on the NFC West or NFC West Network. So that was a lot of fun. I say we're going to lose 27-20, a little bit closer than people think. Maybe a late score makes it interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is exactly what the NFL wanted, and I think maybe some teams, if the Seahawks can get everything right there, yeah, I think you could. I'm leaning more towards maybe 24-14, somewhere
Okay.
around there. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I really don't. I don't think so. I think Pete Carroll is just, I think, too good of a coach, and he's going to come up with some way to maybe make it interesting. Monday Night Football season opener, you have to make it interesting, man. But let's move on. How long, in your opinion, will the Seahawks rebuild take? We're talking about in a question mark at quarterback. But how long will this rebuild take? Obviously, like they're obviously in a rebuild. And best and worst case scenario for this season. What is your ceiling and floor, and where do you see them going?
Best case scenario this year, we get 7, 8 wins and miss the playoffs. Like
Right.
I thought we had a chance at the 7th seed. I don't even think we do anymore. I'd put like 8 to 10 teams ahead of us, at least in the
Yeah.
conference. And so that's how I feel about that. In terms of the floor for this ceiling or for this year, I think we could find ourselves with 1 win. That is the floor right now. My prediction is that we get 3, and they're all 3 going to be at home against the Giants, Jets, and Falcons. Those are the 3 games. I'm a little bit iffy on the Giants, though. They could be in a similar boat as us. Weak quarterback, talented roster, but they have a new head coach and we don't. And so I think that might benefit them a little bit more than it
Yeah.
benefits us. In terms of how long this rebuild's going to take, I think it's going to be a 2-year rebuild. I think after
Yeah.
next year, we're going to be right back in the thick of things. I think next year with our rookie quarterback, we're going to get Will Levis out of Kentucky. I love him. He is so just. He looks like a leader of men. He looks like a guy that is just so good at staying poised and convincing his team that they are going to win. It's the fact that like he's staying poised in the pocket, on the run, making throws down the field, keeping his eyes down the field. He is a difference maker. Now there's a report that came out this week, I think it was by Brady Henderson, about the falling out between the Seahawks and the Denver Broncos. Now, the fact that it came out this week tells you that somebody wanted it out. And from some of the stuff written in it, I could see it being a Seattle side of things wanted it out. But one thing that they talked about in there was that years ago in 2017, the Seahawks were very interested in Patrick Mahomes and might have drafted him had he fallen. And in 2018, they were looking at Josh Allen. And if those reports are true, which we don't know if they are, but we heard the rumors that Seattle might trade with Cleveland for the number 1 pick and include Russell Wilson in that deal. If they were to do that, and those guys were the ones we're looking at, I have a lot of faith in Seattle's ability to pick a quarterback. Even if we struggled with other early picks in the draft, first of all, last year we nailed the draft. You talk about our left tackle, we have a right tackle. Those 2 cornerbacks.
I like him.
And we have a pass rusher in Boye and Mafe we haven't even discussed yet, or the running back Ken Walker, who's going to be a stud for us. So 1,600 yards on the ground, 18 touchdowns. Like that is a guy who put up stats. Like
And last year against Michigan, I remember that game was so close. And then he had a great game last year against Michigan. And you talk about I think the 2-year thing, like that's what what's his name? Brandon Kane from what's his name? From Hawks Nest or whatever. He said that as well, because I put it in the chat a few weeks ago. How long will this rebuild take? How long do you think it's going to take? And he said 2 weeks. I mean, 2 years. So I tend to agree with you. I think as long as you they get that quarterback, then they're going to be able to they're going to be able to start rebuilding, and they're going to be able to start it a right way. Do you like that Ohio State prospect, CJ Stroud?
He is my number 2 option right now behind Will Levis. I don't like Bryce Young, and especially after today. He looked really, really bad against Texas. They should have lost that game had it not been for a blocked field goal and a missed block and all that stuff. So they should have lost that game regardless. And Bryce Young in that game just was overthrowing his guys. CJ Stroud I have a little bit more confidence in. He's a guy that he can win in a shootout. He can be the reason behind his team's victory. He can be clutch at times, and that is a guy that I have as our number 2 prospect. I'm going to reiterate, though, my number 1 is Will Levis, and I hope that Seattle sees it the same way.
Yeah. So you already named your best and worst case. I think best and worst case, same with you. Don't think they're a playoff team. I mean, you look at this playoff picture, and we'll get into it later, but you have Packers, Bucks, Rams, 49ers, Vikings, Saints, Eagles. I think is big, Eagles, let's see, Panthers, I'm trying to think of other ones.
Cardinals.
Cardinals. And so, yeah, that's 9 teams already, I think, are already established. And I think if you guys had a quarterback, or at least a decent quarterback, I'd give you guys a better chance. But same here. I think I'm going to go 1 or 2 wins. And then, yeah, I think 7 or 8 for me as well. I think that's what I initially a few weeks ago projected them as. But yeah, I think I tend to agree with you there.
It's ugly, man. It's ugly. I'm with you. I say 3 wins and one of the top picks in next year's draft.
And if everything works out, I think you're going to have, again, like you said, a great offensive line, 2 rookies there. But then the worst case scenario is like that offensive line doesn't work out. It's pretty new. And then the cornerbacks, that scares me. I looked at their depth chart today and their cornerbacks, and I'm like, oh my, like that is not, they're going to be tested. There's going to be bumps in the road. Even if they're good, they're still going to be tested.
Well, and we have 2 first and 2 second round picks next year. So if we really do suck this year,
Yeah.
we don't have to trade any of those picks to go get our quarterback. That's, I think, the ideal situation, because then we can use those other 3 picks later in the first. I don't think it's gonna be crazy late. Like, I don't think the Broncos are gonna have some insane year. I could see them potentially missing the playoffs. And so if they were to do something like that, we get another pick in the teens while also having a top 3, top 5 pick. Along with those same 2 picks in the second round, we could have some serious talent and be right back in the mix.
Yeah, right back in it. Completely agree with you there. But let's talk about 2 nights ago. Broncos versus Seahawks.
Bills Rams.
I'm sorry. Bills Rams.
Yeah.
Bills Rams. That's my bad. Bills Rams. What are your concerns? So we saw it was a pretty, like, at first it was pretty even. It was 10-10 at half. I was like, okay, it's a pretty good game. Second half, Bills took over. Run game for the Rams was not good. Matthew Stafford threw, I think, 3 picks. And then the Bills offense just looked explosive. And I mean, Josh Allen looked threw 2 picks as well, but he looked really good in the second half as well. I think both of those picks were in the first half. So, wow. I mean, is this just the Bills? Like, is there any concern with this? Like, what is the level of concern with this Rams team, especially for Matthew Stafford, who they quieted the rumors about his elbow now, but what is your level of concern? What is the level of concern for this team, especially Matthew Stafford?
It's got to be at least a 7 out of 10. And part of the reason is not just because the Bills dominated them, but it's the fact that they dominated them the whole game. Even when the game was tied at half, the first half, that should have been all Bills. There were 2 interceptions that didn't necessarily have to happen if the receiver makes a better play on the football, especially the first one with Isaiah McKenzie. If he just catches it and doesn't hand it off to the linebacker, that's a catch.
Yeah,
and
totally.
So the fact that the Rams won the turnover battle and lost the game in such a terrible fashion, that's humiliating. The fact that Matthew Stafford, more times in his career, has shown us that he's not the guy that he was last year. That's terrifying. They don't have depth all over their roster, and their offensive line looks worse than it has in years. And those are all big problems. Bobby Wagner doesn't look the same as he did when he was in blue and green. So I think there are a number of things. And Jalen Ramsey got cooked. That's your big money guy.
Wow. Yeah, that was crazy. And their run game allowed 6 yards to their top runner, a Bills team who weren't very good, and they really didn't run it that much yesterday either. I remember, and I don't think it was, I think my level of concern for Matthew Stafford is less than for the Rams in general, because I think you have to put it into context. People were saying, and that first interception, I just went back and watched probably half of the all 22 film. That first interception was bad. By Matthew Stafford. He threw it behind the guy and it went right to the cornerback. That was bad. But and there was a few times where he missed, like there was another time, I think on the very next drive, where he checked it down or checked it, like it was a few yard play, but Cooper Kupp, I wish I could pull it up, but I'll probably post it later on my channel. Cooper Kupp was wide open downfield. And he completed it to a guy who was a little bit shorter down the field. Or like it was basically a check down throw. So he missed, he was hesitant to go downfield, and the throws were schemed up for a lot shorter. They didn't really take a lot of shots. There wasn't a lot of scheme shots down the field. So that was a concern. There is something behind that, I do think. But I do think that the offensive line, there is context behind that, because this offensive line I mean, the Bills' defensive line is really good, but I feel like
Yeah.
this offensive line was a huge concern going into the season. Like, I talked to a lot of Rams fans and Rams, just Rams fans in general, and they were pretty happy with the offensive line. But if you look at that depth at that position, it's not great, and it's starting to show. I mean, that run game, 3.5 yards per carry, I believe, and really it looked like a completely different Rams offense, even though it was just against the Bills.
The Rams offense looked better. They looked satisfied. They looked like they weren't
Yeah,
hungry.
they
They
did.
looked like
They did.
because they won the Super Bowl that they're just gonna walk in and beat every single team. The Bills came in like that was their Super Bowl, and that's my Super
Yeah.
Bowl pick to win it all. And
Yeah.
that's who I'm rooting for, considering I'm a Seahawks fan. And let's let someone else be happy this year and screw the NFC West. So that's how I feel about that. And the fact that the Bills defense, I will say the Bills pass rush, unreal. Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau, Basham, and Von Miller.
Yeah,
that's electric. Like those are men amongst boys, and those guys are going to be a serious problem all year long.
And Shaq Lawson also, when he comes back, is he out for the season or no? Because he was injured. He's injured.
I don't know.
I can look up the timeline in a second.
AJ Epinesa, like just the depth. Daquan Jones, these guys have a roster, and those are going to be troublemakers all year long for every quarterback that plays them.
Yeah, it really will be. And I think like we can do you want to do a segue into our next one? Like, are the Bills this good, or are the Rams like that bad? Like, I think the Rams are like, I think a lot of people are overreacting. I feel like the vibe the last few days are the Rams suck. Well, this Bills team, I think, is on another level this year. I really do. So yes, I think the Rams definitely don't look the same. And the fact that it was at home and they had, I think I think the Rams, even though it was at home, they're defending Super Bowl champions. I think the pressure was more on the Bills because I think the crowd was Rams fans mostly, and the Bills, they have the expectations to win the Super Bowl. Everyone's picking them. So I think the pressure was on the Bills. But yeah, I think this team is I think it's more how good the Bills are than how bad the Rams are.
Well, I honestly, it sounds like a cop-out. I think it's a combination. Like, you talk about how good the Bills are. Yeah, they're pretty good. Isaiah McKenzie on top of the other two receivers, Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, who he needs to take less hits, but the stiff arms that he's delivering, the swag that he brings to this offense. Roger Saffold looked good at times, and the defense on this team is just electric. And it's a combination of things. They turned the ball over too much. That was clear, but those mistakes were very correctable. And it wasn't on the fault of their quarterback. So moving forward, a lot of trust for this team. I think that they're really good. And like I said, the depth on the Los Angeles Rams is bad. Combine that with the fact that they just have this, they walk around like they just won the Super Bowl, which they did. Good for you, but that doesn't help you
get back to work
Sunday. Right.
And good dynasties. That's where good teams, I really salute to them for going to the Super Bowl twice in a row. And it really is hard because you have, after winning a Super Bowl, a lot of teams will be like, they'll take time off. And whenever you do, it was a great quote that I saw the other day. Whenever you take time off in the off season, that's a time that you could be spending getting better. So I mean, definitely maybe Super Bowl hangovers are real for sure. And I mean, the other thing that was a little bit concerning is their defensive line, not that good. I mean, obviously the Bills' offensive line has improved a little bit, but their run game was surprisingly pretty bad. And the Bills didn't even force feed it to them. And that's kind of encouraging for my team and your team as well. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can run it down their throats again this year. So
that's the goal. And it's been a year long. For years now, people have said, well, if you want to attack the Rams defense, try and run it at Aaron Donald, because that way he's getting double teamed. It's not always going to work, but if he's on the weak side, his athleticism can come into play even more, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, that's true. So let's get into a little bit of the comments. This is an interesting one. And shout out to Grandizer. Great. This is one of my most loyal supporters. He's shout out Payo Time as well. Because I think I got him from Payo Time. when I did a show with Payo Time, Grandizer popped in, and now he's been here every show.
Hey.
So shout out to you. Shout out to Payo Time. Allen Robinson looked bad. No Van Jefferson. I don't think it was Allen Robinson looking bad. I think he just got like literally no targets.
He didn't get targets, and I heard one of my friends, Emma Savoris, talking about how bad we got in an argument yesterday, talking about how deep the Rams receivers are. I still think the Rams receivers are deep, but Allen Robinson didn't have his best performance. And one good point that he made was that there were times where he was walking off the snap, like when he should be blocking or he should be selling a pass or something, but like don't walk off the snap of the football. And I understand how frustrating it can get when you never get targeted.
Yeah.
But I think that was on both ends. I think Matthew Stafford definitely should have looked to him a little bit more. I think they should have engaged Cam Akers a little more. I only have him in one of my 8 fantasy leagues, but
what was that?
That was a duck. That was
terrible. That was terrible. Yeah. Allen Robinson, I remember I started him yesterday. And I think we definitely need to, like, as far as fantasy goes, definitely temper our expectations on him. I think it's going to come this year. I started him and I had 1 point out of him, and that was not good because
I started Cam Akers. Yeah. I got 0.
Yeah, I don't know what. And they were definitely running Darrell Henderson a lot more. He had actually a pretty decent game. What's up, Ben and Squabo? Shout out to Amin the Dream. Got off of his channel on Wednesday. I did a show with him. That was a lot of fun. Go subscribe to him if you haven't. Agree. The pressure was off on the Bills. Rams still hung over. Yeah, it really was. For the Bills, I think were a team last year that, like, you'd think that the Bengals would have the most pressure and the Rams. No, the Bills this year have the most pressure, I think, out of any team. They didn't even go to the Super Bowl. So,
yeah. They were 13 seconds away from the AFC Championship game, and that's what's terrifying for them.
Yeah. And I think the Super Bowl, I really do think they matched up really well with the Bengals. So.
Oh yeah, and look, if they would have made it to the Super Bowl, look what they could have done. I mean, Von Miller was on the other sideline, OBJ was still out on the Rams. Things were different, but they would have had a real shot.
Yeah, they really would have. Yep. Love what you do on the NFC Network, Squabo. Amazing stuff. Yes, if you haven't already, go subscribe to him. Yeah, really, really smart content creator. Love watching his stuff. What's up, Grandizer? Well, yeah, that's to somebody in the chat. Josh definitely was the best QB on the field. Absolutely. He amazes me every year. Really does. Yeah, so let's get to the next topic though. Let's see here. So let's see. Oh, yes. So who are the 7 playoff teams in the NFC in your opinion? And maybe you want to quickly project the matchups as well, but for now, let's just do 7 playoffs teams. Who do you have going to the playoffs in the NFC this year?
Yeah, and we've already listed all the teams that I have going. So I think for the 1 seed, it's so tough. It might be Green Bay. It might be Tampa Bay.
Ooh.
I think the Eagles can make a push for it just because of their weak division, the amount of talent that they've brought in defensively and offensively. So I think the Eagles are a team. I think the division winners, I got Tampa Bay, Green Bay, the Rams, and I'm tempted to say the 49ers. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not going to do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the Philadelphia Eagles, those are the division winners. And then for the wild card, you look to the Vikings. I don't think the Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. I do think the 49ers are going to make the playoffs. And then I go to New Orleans, and I see a quarterback that if he builds a connection with Michael Thomas, I got Michael Thomas in so many fantasy leagues, so I'm really hoping that he just bombs it to Thomas all year long.
Yeah, that Michael Thomas is a surprising one in fantasy because he's a lower pick, and it's same with like DeAndre Hopkins. If he comes back, you can get both of those guys in later rounds. But I'm gonna go. So my question to you though, do you think the Vikings, because this next pick will probably surprise you, do you think the Vikings have what are the chances of them winning the division? I think they do this year. I think this year they get it done.
See, if you look at their roster and compare it to the Packers, the only place where they have an advantage is wide receiver. And outside of that, maybe running back. That's my concern, is that the Packers, well, yes, Devontae Adams is gone. they can pass the ball around, and they're going to feature their running backs quite a bit. Additionally, their defense is 10 times better than it was last year, and it's one of the top defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL this year. So they're going to
Yeah.
be swarming. I think the Packers have a real shot to win that division and to get the number 1 seed.
That's one of the matchups this next. I'm going to be tuning in for that one for sure. The Packers versus Vikings, because I kind of have staked my claim on this. I'm going to pick the Vikings to win the division, not first seed. I think I'm getting them third. I can't completely. So I have Eagles number 1, Buccaneers number 2. I think even their offensive line, like, it's a concern, but I think their receiving core is just too deep. Like that's kind of scary what they have. They have 6 receivers who all are really good. Like, it's kind of scary what they have there. And then I've got Rams at number 3. And then let's see. So Eagles number 1, Buccaneers number 2, Rams number 3, and then this is tough. Vikings number 4, Packers number 5, and Saints number 6, Cowboys number 7. So I think the Cowboys, the talent that they have, I mean, they've definitely downgraded, but
So
I
wait,
mean,
you're saying you missed the playoffs?
oh wait, I didn't name the 49ers.
I don't think you did, because you said
Oh, I said Rams number. Okay, so sorry. Hold on a second. I had them initially making it.
did.
Eagles number 1, Buccaneers number 2, Vikings number 3, Rams number 4, and
Okay.
then Packers number 5, 49ers number 6, New Orleans number 7. That's what
Okay, so Cowboys missed it. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Sorry. It's my bad.
You're good, bro. I was fine with it.
I initially here on my list here, on my list here, I've accidentally left out the Rams, which I definitely was not intending to do that. So
okay.
that's my bad. But yeah, I think obviously they have lost a lot of talent, the Cowboys. I think the Saints are, if they can get over that new coach, like the amount of teams that have a new coach, like the same concerns, like everyone's saying with the Saints, like they have a new coach and we don't know how good he's going to do and whatever. Well, I mean, that's the same goes for the Broncos, who everyone's super high on. Same goes for the Raiders, who the last time he had a stint, McDaniels had a stint, he was terrible. And so really, that could go for a lot of teams. I think that there's a lot of talent. That defense, they traded away Gardner Johnson, but they also have a good replacement for him. And then they have a really deep receiving core, really good running back, a quarterback who I think has kind of developed over the last few years, and that his stay there has been really beneficial to him. He's gotten his career on the mend. So their defense is top 5. Their receiving core is really good. And I mean, we look at what was the guy last year? Callaway. He was a good receiver, and he's like 5th on the depth chart. So yeah, I think they're a deep team. And I think they're going to sneak in there. Last year they didn't, but they've gotten better this year. Yeah, I got to say them. I think it's going to be close between the Niners and Rams, though. I really do. That's why I have Rams at the number 4 seed. So.
Wow. Hey, fair enough. I think the Niners have a chance. I'm concerned by Kyle Shanahan coming out multiple times publicly and acknowledging his criticism of Trey Lance. Additionally, I didn't love Deebo Samuel coming back 3 months after requesting a trade. He didn't want to be here. And then he says the position had nothing to do with, or did he say, I think he said the position had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, he did say that.
Shut up. That's a lie. Like, there's absolutely no way, considering the difference in paycheck. The highest paid running back in the NFL right now is Christian McCaffrey, $16 million a year. The highest paid receiver in the NFL, Tyreek Hill, $30 million a year. That's twice as much money based on the position. So even if you weren't talking about where you want to play the position matters because that impacts how much you're signing for. So it's for those reasons I have my questions.
The 49ers are penny pinchers. They always have been. Parag Marathe, I think his name is. He has always been known to like downplay players, to definitely get every cent, like save every cent for that team. So they definitely used that card on Deebo Samuel. I don't know how much it worked, but they definitely did that. So Yeah, that's a good point. There is reason for concern. I think it's just going to be so hard for this team to fail, especially with the run game that they have, the roster that they have. I don't know. I think injuries is really the only thing, which we kind of, I mean, we already have been having a little bit of injuries. We had cornerback injuries earlier on in camp. They're both back, though. George Kittle's not playing tomorrow, most likely not.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. But yeah, so definitely a reason for concern there. Let's see here. Yup, Ben did say 49ers didn't make the playoffs, but put Cards into the place. No, I put Cowboys. I don't know what I did. Bryant just putting the top and doors back on my Jeep. Put the rear doors aren't lining up. I'll get it.
There you
I don't
go.
know.
You got that.
What's up, David McNew? He says, David McNew, my brother has a Jeep. It's nice. I keep thinking about a 4-door. Yeah. I was considering buying a Jeep this year for like my first car. But I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. So MVP predictions for this next year before we let you go. What are your MVP predictions for this year after a pretty good performance by Josh Allen, to say the least? He was good. I can look up his exact stats, but yeah, what are your MVP performance picks?
What was it? Three. Did he have 3 touchdown passes or
He had 3
4?
TDs, 2 interceptions.
297.
The thing that was so impressive, though, 26 for 31.
And
5 incompletions.
only 2 sacks taken. Also,
Yeah.
like that. That's really good. Was it like 5-6 yards he lost? Like
Yeah.
that's all really good. I think he's your MVP.
Yeah.
I think he's your MVP, and I think defensively, Von Miller has a real shot to be Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
If not a
true.
Micah Parsons.
That would be a story for Von Miller, because he hasn't, like, he had those down years where he was overshadowed and injuries, and it was overshadowed by how bad the Broncos were, but now that he's on a good team. And the thing that, going back real quick to that Rams Bills matchup, Tre'Davious White wasn't even playing. So that's kind of crazy to me. And the fact that Josh Allen had 2 interceptions, and so really he only had 3 incompletions the whole game, which is crazy. And it's just like, if you're throwing it, as long as he can limit the interceptions, if you're throwing it at that high of a level every game, I mean, yeah, I could understand. Like, we always, like, this year I was like, they need to establish a little bit more of a run game. Why should you establish a run game when your quarterback is that good? Like, the most talent, I think he's a more talented passer than Patrick Mahomes, personally.
Hey, it's definitely close. I think with just his physicality and the way he bulldozes defenders, I think that inspires his team.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm going to go same there. Yeah, so chat, let me know what your guys' MVP picks. Squabo, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me tonight, man.
Ben, man, you are brilliant. Like I haven't been exposed to your work until now, and just speaking to you, you blow me away with your intelligence, your composure, your preparation, your show. You're gonna be a hit, bro. Like if you stick with this, you're going to be so successful, and I already know it. So please keep me in your circle, and don't forget me when you get to the top.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thank you so much, man. If you haven't already, go subscribe to him. Great content. And a lot of you already listen to the NFC Network or NFC West Network. So keep doing that, man. And everyone, this has been a fun night. We'll see you. I'll probably have a post-game show after the 49ers. Football's back, baby. Week 1. Real quick, Grandizer says Denver Broncos, Russell Wilson confirms Seattle Seahawks tried to trade him before this year. It says his skills not diminished. Does Squabo believe Wilson's skills have diminished?
Yes,
really?
He has.
Okay.
He is not the same quarterback. He holds the ball too long. He's not as decisive. I think he's going to be hungrier now that he's on the new team, but
yeah, true.
I don't know. I'm not in love with his decision making.
And honestly, they haven't really given him a very good offensive line either. It's very, very mid. And like, I always was like, okay, well, Seahawks offensive line has always been bad. This one's not much better than the Seahawks offensive line was. Robbie Gould will be MVP week 1. Yes, totally. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. Could Kenneth Walker the third be a rookie of the year?
He entirely could, and it all
Yeah,
depends on how Rashad Penny plays and if
plays
Rashad Penny is able to stay
stays
healthy.
healthy.
Pete
How?
Carroll likes to go
Go
with the
ahead.
hot hand,
Yeah.
and so if Ken gets hot, expect it. But
Yeah.
we don't know, and it's also him recovering from that injury.
So real quick before we go, what is the target? Like, what do you think is the running back? Like, what is the carry share? Mostly Penny, right?
I think it's going to be on the fly throughout the year. It's going to change. I could see after the entire year, I think Ken Walker will have gotten more touches than Rashad Penny.
Okay.
But I
In the
really
passing game
do.
as well.
I really think it's going to be close. Yeah, if you talk about the entire share, it could honestly be 50-50 just because front half of the season is going to be heavy Rashad Penny. Second half of the
Yeah,
season is going to be heavy
probably.
Ken Walker.
Yeah, that's true. Good point there. Everyone, this has been a fun night. Clap it up for Noah Bolter, aka Squabo Says. Go subscribe to his channel. All the links are in the description. So, everyone, this has been a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. And have a good day, everyone. 49ers are going to kick the Chicago Bears' butts tomorrow, I hope.
Go Hawks. Go Hawks.